Hi everyone, welcome back. This is Kate at Wallace's Garden Center here in Bettendorf, Iowa. And today it is hydrangea season. They're starting to bloom in my yard. They're starting to bloom here in the nursery. And I want to talk about hydrangeas. This is our number one type of shrub that we sell. We sell the most of it, and for many great reasons. They are awesome bloomers. They are very hardy and reliable in our Midwest gardens, and they just provide a lot of color and interest to the landscape. The downside to hydrangeas is there are just so many of them, and there's a lot of confusion out there, even among industry professionals, as far as which ones go where, what likes sun, what likes shade, when do you prune them. Today I hope to kind of clear up some of that mystery that happens around hydrangeas. When we are out working in the nursery, we have people come in and they'll say, what's wrong with my hydrangea? When do I prune my hydrangea? And the question we always start with is, what kind of hydrangea do you have? Most of us don't know, right? It's a plant that we planted it, we didn't keep the name of it, we're not sure. And so today I'm going to go over those different types, including the three most popular types that you probably have in your yard. And we'll talk about how they should be pruned, if they should be pruned, how you can manipulate the color of the flower, and what kind of conditions they need to grow. So hydrangeas are some of our favorite shrubs, but they do have some mystery around them. So let's clear up some of the misconceptions and some of the questions today, and hopefully you can come in and find the perfect hydrangea for your yard. As I mentioned before, there are actually 6 different categories of hydrangea. There are Mophead hydrangeas, there are smooth or Annabelle type hydrangeas, there are Panicle or PG type hydrangeas, as well as oak leaf hydrangea, climbing hydrangea, and mountain hydrangeas. Today we are going to focus on the most popular 3 types, which are the smooth hydrangea, the Mophead, and the Panicle hydrangea. So the first category of hydrangea I want to talk about today is the smooth hydrangea, or Hydrangea arborescens. This is an old-fashioned plant that you probably remember at your grandparents' house, the most popular of which is one called Annabelle hydrangea, which is actually discovered in the state of Illinois. Smooth hydrangeas have flowers that are very large and round, ball-shaped. Some people will call them snowball bushes. They are just really, really great. They are the one category that can take some shade. They will take not full shade, but they will take part shade all the way up to part sun. If you have them in full sun, they do like to have a lot of water. Traditionally, they always came in just only in white. And but now there are some newer ones. This is Invincible Ruby, that is pink, and then the one in front of it is Invincible Wee White, which is a smaller, kind of shorter version of the Annabelle. There's also some that have kind of a lime tint to the flowers. These guys are really, really great plants. They bloom for a very long time. Because the Annabelle types do have a tendency to get floppy or start to fall over, I always put on mine early in the spring these grow through grid supports. Put it right over as the foliage starts coming out, and the plant will grow up through it, and then this grid will support it so that you don't have it falling all over the place. If you miss that window, you can actually get some of these half hoop supports, and those go into the ground, and then they can give support to the flower stems that way. The reason they do tend to fall over like that is because the flower heads are so large and heavy that the stems just can't always hold them. The newer varieties, like the Invincibles and the Incredibles from Proven Winners, have much stronger stems and a little bit smaller flower, so the newer varieties, you won't have to deal with that as much. But this is a plant that if you are looking for a hydrangea more for a shady area, these are the category that you should be looking at, and that is the smooth or Annabelle type hydrangea. So these guys will continue to bloom through the whole summer, all the way through frost, and then this is where we start to hear pruning questions. So the smooth type hydrangeas actually bloom on new wood, meaning that next season when they come up, they will develop all new stems, and they will develop all new flower buds. So you don't have to worry about getting those flower buds through the winter. So this plant you can actually prune You can prune it back halfway. I prune mine down to about 8 to 10 inches tall in the fall and keep them nice and short so that when they grow back up, they're really full and have nice strong stems. So this is one of the types of hydrangea that you can go ahead and cut back in the fall. If you don't get it done in the fall, you can do it in early spring before the new growth starts going. This next category of hydrangea is probably the most confusing, and that is probably because of the history and just kind of some mistakes that were made along the way in marketing. And so this is the one that we are often kind of dispelling myths and kind of helping customers kind of overcome the challenges that have presented themselves from kind of getting the wrong plant for the wrong place. The awesome thing about Mophead or reblooming hydrangeas is their beauty. Their colors are stunning and they have great size and they are just awesome, beautiful plants for the landscape. So they definitely have a place once we understand how they work, how they grow, and how to make them work in our yard. One of the biggest kind of confusing things is that these plants bloom on what we call old wood, and some of them bloom on old wood and new wood. So what that means is that in the fall, when they start to lose their leaves and go dormant, their flower buds for the following year are already set. But in our climate, when we go through our hard, cold winters, those flower buds often die. And so the next spring, the plant comes back up, you get beautiful foliage, and it never flowers, which is really frustrating because that's the reason we bought it in the first place. The reason this happens is that for a long time in the market, all of the Mophead hydrangeas only bloomed on old wood. So in order to have that here in Iowa, you had to buy a variety like Nico Blue and protect it over the winter. Along came a while ago the Endless Summer series of hydrangeas, and then many, many more reblooming hydrangeas. So these are Mophead hydrangeas that bloom on old wood and new wood. So when they send new growth up in the spring, they set new flower buds. And if there are any flower buds from the year before that make it, they'll bloom on those as well. Part of the problem also with these is that a lot of people think that they have to prune every fall or every spring. So if you're pruning back your hydrangeas in the fall, especially if it's these Mophead types, you're definitely not going to have any flowers. The Mophead or reblooming types of hydrangeas actually don't need any pruning at all. What we recommend for them is just deadheading, which means cutting off the spent blooms either late fall or early spring if you want to have them through the winter, and then basically cutting out any dead wood in the spring. So as that new foliage starts to grow and you have some stems that you see don't have any growth on them, go ahead, cut those off, let the plant grow into its natural shape, which is a really nice mounded habit, and you will have flowers. These guys are ones that they like some sun, but not hot afternoon sun. Mophead types I like to put on an eastern exposure, or if you have them on kind of a northwest or a northeastern exposure, make sure that they're getting adequate water. Hydrangeas like water as long as they're in well-drained soil where the water can drain away. If you have this plant in too much sun, you'll start to see sunburn on the edges. There is another type of hydrangea that absolutely loves the sun and is very heat tolerant. So if you have a spot like that, there is a hydrangea for you, just not these Mophead types. The last really cool thing about the Mophead type of hydrangea is that you can manipulate the color. You can play with the color of the blooms. So these two plants that I actually have here are the same plant. These are both Hydrangea Bloomstruck, which is from the Endless Summer series, but they're from two different growers. So a lot of times you'll hear, oh, you can make a hydrangea pink or blue. That is true of only the Mophead types. The other types, the smooth hydrangea, the Panicle type, they will have different variations of flower color, but it's not something you can manipulate yourself. The way that you can do this is by playing with the pH of your soil. So that brings in this product, Soil Acidifier. Our soils here in the Midwest are naturally alkaline, meaning they have a pH of 7 or above. In our soils, Mophead hydrangeas tend to be naturally pink, kind of a bright bubblegum pink is what you usually see. So that is what is happening here. They can be changed into that bright blue that we often see out on the East Coast or out on the West Coast, the bright blue hydrangeas. that you've probably seen in your travels. This particular hydrangea right here is one that is kind of in transition. It's moving from pink on its way to blue. And so a lot of times you will get different shades of purple or light blue or dark pink just because of the soil pH changing over. If you want to have the blue hydrangeas, it is something that you have to continually kind of battle season in, season out if you want that blue color. So you'll want to use a soil acidifier mixed into the soil when you plant and then added to the top of the soil every spring and every fall. And if you're doing it enough, you'll know because you'll have blue flowers. If you're not doing it enough, you'll probably end up with some shades of purple or dark pink. Either way, they're all beautiful, and it's just something that is kind of fun to mess around with in your garden and play with to see if you can get a new look. So these are Mophead hydrangeas. The big takeaways are they like sun, but not full hot sun, and they don't need to be pruned like a lot of people think that they do. So now we're going to talk about my favorite type of hydrangea, which is the Panicle or PG type of hydrangea. And the reason that I love them so much is, number one, diversity. You can get a little bobo that is 2.5 feet tall all the way up to a limelight that is 10 feet tall. So you can get them in any size and lots of different colors, and they just perform. So this type of hydrangea is a sun hydrangea. So it is heat tolerant, it is drought tolerant once established, and this will grow in your hottest, driest sunny spot that gets, south or west sun all day. It will also thrive on an eastern exposure where it just gets morning sun. So it's very, very versatile when it comes to lighting conditions. They also have flowers that aren't round. They're actually more of what they call a panicle shape. So they kind of look more like a cone. And this is one way when we're helping people identify what type of hydrangea they have, we'll often ask about the flower shape. So these guys, they all bloom on new wood. So if you do cut it down in the fall or cut it back in the spring, it is still going to grow in the spring. It is still guaranteed to bloom. That is another reason why I like this plant, because I know for sure any customer that before has had, I have a beautiful hydrangea, it never blooms. You're not going to have that issue with any of the panicle type hydrangeas. For flower color, they come mostly in white. A lot of the first ones were the limelight types, where it's kind of a greenish lime color that opens to a nice creamy flower. A lot of them now come out white, and then they have this color transition throughout the season as it gets cooler. They go from white to a blush pink to a medium pink all the way to a dark pink, and then almost a rusty kind of antique red shade for the fall. So they add a ton of interest. They have really strong stems so that you don't have them flopping. They're fairly deer resistant and just kind of have all kinds of great characteristics for them. But I really like the fact that you can just get tall ones, short ones, anywhere in between. You can get different color interest. They don't have to be pruned, but you definitely can prune them back pretty much all the way to the ground. The one I have, I pretty much do down to about 15 to 20 inches and then let it grow back up from there. But you can also leave them. They're great for cutting in the summer and fall and bringing inside in vases. They're just a really great plant that pretty much anyone can make work in the garden. As far as care goes for your hydrangeas, these are relatively low maintenance plants, regardless of what category of hydrangea you have decided to plant. Water-wise, they like to be watered until they get established for sure. So like any new shrub, 1.5 to 2 inches of water or rain per week. You can cut some of them back in the spring, cut out the dead wood, and fertilize once a year, and you're going to have a hydrangea that rewards you.